Welcome to WikiPodcast.
Great to be back.
And welcome back to our mini-series on global philosophical traditions. Today, we're diving deep into the second episode.
That's right. We're focusing on Zen Buddhism.
Specifically, its really distinctive emphasis on meditation and, well, direct experience.
Exactly. Our goal here in this deep dive is really to get to the heart of what defines Zen.
Okay.
We'll be tracing its pretty fascinating origins, as a blend of Indian Mahayana Buddhism.
Which was already complex itself, right?
Absolutely. Diverse schools within that, and then blending it with the unique insights of Chinese Taoist thought. And from there, we'll explore the core principles. So meditation, the pursuit of direct personal understanding.
And how that actually looks in practice.
Precisely.
And for you, our listener, the learner, why should you join us? Well, if you've ever been drawn to Zen's approach, maybe to wisdom and enlightenment, but perhaps found it a bit shrouded.
Yeah, maybe in complex language or, overly academic theory.
Then this deep dive is definitely for you. We've sifted through the sources to bring you the essential insights, some surprising aspects, too, of this really rich tradition.
And hopefully in a way that's clear and engaging.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start right at the roots. Zen's origins are in China, with what became known as the Chan school.
Chan, C-H-A-N.
Right. And intriguingly, the name Chan itself, it just directly translates to meditation school.
So it's right there from the beginning. Meditation is central.
It highlights it immediately. Yeah.
And that name has a journey, doesn't it?
It does. The Japanese word Zen, which is probably, more familiar to many people,
Definitely.
comes from the Middle Chinese Chan.
Yeah.
And if you trace it back even further,
Uh-huh.
Chan originates from the Sanskrit word dhyan.
Yeah, okay.
And that's a really rich term. It covers contemplation, deep absorption, and ultimately a profound meditative state.
So the whole history of the word just points back to meditation.
Absolutely. It underscores the importance. So meditation, whether we call it Chan, dhyana, or even zazen in Japanese.
Dazen, meaning sitting meditation specifically.
Yes, sitting meditation. It truly forms the bedrock of Zen Buddhist practice.
Now, the historical context here is really interesting, I think, because Buddhist meditation, it wasn't originally Chinese, right?
Not at all. It arrived through the really dedicated efforts of translators, people like An Shigao and Kumarajiva.
Centuries ago.
Yeah. Their work brought key Buddhist texts to China, and they were largely drawing from the meditation teachings of the Sarvastivada school.
Which was based where?
In Kashmir.
Yeah.
And their approach, it emphasized a very detailed analysis of mental and physical phenomena.
Okay, so quite analytical.
Very. And what's fascinating is how these early translations, like the Anban Shui Jing that focuses on mindfulness of breathing, and the Zuoshan Sanmei Jing.
The Sutra of Sitting Dhyana Samadhi.
Right, they laid an initial groundwork. But, early China wasn't just stuck on these methods.
It wasn't rigid.
No, it embraced a variety of Buddhist techniques as skillful means, adaptable tools, really.
To do what?
To help practitioners awaken their innate Buddha mind. There were even, uniquely Mahayana approaches, like the East Mountain School's practice of visualizing a sun disk.
Visualization. So while these classic techniques were there, we often hear about this Zen's sudden method. Was there a real shift happening even early on?
That's a crucial point, and scholars are still digging into it. While early Chan definitely used classical Buddhist meditation, it also started developing its own sort of distinctive approaches.
Like what?
Well, think of these early uniquely Chan methods. They emphasized inward cultivation through practices known as maintaining mind, maintaining unity, shui,
Okay.
discerning the mind, guangxin, viewing the mind, kansen, and pacifying the mind.
Those all sound very inward focused,
Yeah.
directly engaging with the mind itself.
Precisely. There's a traditional saying that captures it beautifully.
Yeah.
Chan points directly to the human mind,
Oh.
to enable people to see their true nature and become Buddhas.
Very direct. And the East Mountain School, you mentioned them, they were particularly associated with this.
They were. With this sudden and direct approach, they advocated maintaining the one without wavering.
The one, what's the one?
Here, the one refers to the fundamental, unchanging nature of mind, often called suchness or Buddha nature.
The inherent potential within everyone.
Exactly. Like the clear sky, always there, even behind clouds.
So the focus shifted away from maybe elaborate rituals or long preparations towards just recognizing this inherent nature.
Exactly that. The practice involved turning attention directly to the nature of conscious awareness itself. this intrinsically pure Buddha nature.
Like a mirror or the sun?
Yeah, often likened to a pristine mirror or an ever-shining sun that's just temporarily obscured. What's striking is a reported difference from, traditional practices of the time.
Mm.
Well, some sources suggest this approach often involved, like no preparatory requirements, no moral prerequisites, or preliminary exercises.
Really? No prerequisites?
That's what some texts imply.
Huh.
Described as unfolding without steps or gradations. One concentrates, understands, and is enlightened, all in one undifferentiated practice.
Wow. That sounds like bypassing a lot. A flash of insight instead of years of steps.
It does sound like a significant departure, quite radical for its time.
Definitely.
And adding to this shift, other early Zen sources started introducing concepts like no mind, wuxin, and no mindfulness.
Wumiment.
No mindfulness.
Yeah. This probably drew influence from Madhyamaka philosophy. The emphasis on emptiness, lack of inherent existence.
Seen in texts like the Treatise on No Mind.
And the Platform Sutra, exactly. The idea was to avoid solidifying any fixed notion of mind as some concrete thing.
And not getting stuck on language.
Right, to prevent clinging to language or conceptual frameworks. So the focus in contemplation shifted towards emptiness, negation, absence, wushu. It's like the classic finger pointing at the moon analogy, right? Don't mistake the finger for the moon.
Precisely. So it was about both recognizing the inherent Buddha mind and simultaneously letting go of rigid ideas about it.
Okay, so those two themes, Buddha mind and no mind, they kind of fueled the evolution of Zen.
They really did. Later, we see specific Zen meditation manuals emerge, like the Zhuxian Yi around the 12th century.
What did that recommend?
It recommended simple contemplation as a way to directly access the inherent wisdom within. And interestingly, this also reflected earlier influences from Tiantai practices, from the patriarch Z.
So it sounds like early Zen meditation was really dynamic, evolving, not just a fixed set of rules.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember, not all Zen sources only talked about sitting meditation.
Oh.
Some, like the teachings in the Record of Linji, actually kind of de-emphasize formal sitting.
Really? How?
By highlighting the potential for enlightenment within the sort of effortless flow of ordinary daily activities. There's a powerful quote from Linji. Followers of the way. As to Buddha-dharma, no effort is necessary. You have only to be ordinary, with nothing to do, defecating, urinating, wearing clothes, eating food, and lying down when tired.
Wow, okay. That's a very different vibe. It almost sounds like a challenge to needing dedicated practice at all.
In some ways, it was a critique of getting too attached to the form of practice, Certain early Chan sources, the Long Scroll, Platform Sutra, Shenhui's teachings, did question the absolute necessity of traditional meditation techniques.
Like mindfulness and concentration.
Yeah, they argued that profound insight could be attained directly, suddenly, without needing those gradual step-by-step methods. The Long Scroll suggests someone with keen insight hears of the path without producing a covetous mind, implying an immediate grasp.
So this idea of a radical, unmediated path was a pretty significant current in some schools.
Very much so. And some of the more radical, sudden teaching sources push these ideas even further, sometimes with pretty shocking rejections of traditional Buddhist norms.
Yeah.
Well, the record of the Dharma Jewel through the ages made this really controversial statement that it was better that one should destroy yila ethical precepts and not destroy true seeing.
Destroy precepts. Better than destroying true seeing.
Yeah, the argument, seemingly, was that clinging to rules could create more karma, while true insight leads directly to liberation.
And the bloodstream sermon.
That went even further, claiming karma wouldn't affect someone who'd truly seen their own nature, regardless of actions. And it even discouraged worshiping Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as just clinging to illusions.
That is incredibly provocative language. It feels like they were deliberately trying to shock people.
Precisely. And the Record of Linji is maybe the most famous for these extreme statements, like, if you meet a Buddha, kill the Buddha.
You kill the Buddha line.
And similar things about patriarchs, arhats, even parents. Of course, these weren't literal calls to violence.
Right, metaphors.
Powerful metaphors intended to sever all dependence on external authority, to force a direct, unmediated encounter with your own true nature.
So these radical statements, unsettling as they might sound, were really tools aimed at breaking ingrained thinking.
Exactly, pointing directly towards a deeper, immediate truth. Now, alongside these sometimes revolutionary ideas, there was also a more grounded, practical technique, breath counting.
Okay. Back to basics, kinda.
In a way, Zen students were often told to count their breaths, inhalations, and exhalations, or maybe just one, typically up to 10, then repeat.
To quiet the mind.
Yeah, to quiet the mental chatter. Some later teachers, like Omori Sojin, even advocated long, deep breaths as preparation.
Focusing where?
Often on the energy center below the navel, the dantian or haratanden, emphasizing diaphragmatic breathing from the lower abdomen. The aim was to gradually shift from conscious counting to simply observing the natural breath rhythm with focused attention. Though, interestingly, teachers had different views.
How so?
Some emphasized counting, others just watching the breath, some recommended neither.
So even with something fundamental like breath meditation, there was diversity. Okay, so we've looked at the history and some foundational ideas. What about contemporary Zen meditation? What forms does it actually take today?
Well, today we see several prominent forms. One significant practice is silent illumination.
Mozao in Chinese, mokushus in Japanese.
Exactly. It's traditionally associated with the Kaidong school, figures like Hongzi Zhengju, and it aims for a harmonious integration of shamatha and vipassana.
Calm focus and insightful awareness.
Right. It's not just about getting still, but about letting wisdom arise from that stillness.
So cultivating insightful awareness within the quiet.
Precisely. Now, a related practice, particularly emphasized by the Suchu Zen school in Japan, especially through Dujin, is shikantaza.
Just sitting?
Just sitting, yeah. The key difference here is the mind doesn't intentionally focus on any specific object, not even the breath.
So what does it do?
As the modern Such teacher Shohaku Okumura puts it, when we just sit, our mind is nowhere and everywhere. Dujin called this state hishiryu, non-thinking, a state of awareness that transcends thinking versus not thinking. Just being present with whatever arises, without judgment or getting hooked.
So it sounds similar to silent illumination, but distinct.
Yeah. They both aim for objectless awareness, but shikantaza is maybe more about just being the space, while silent illumination is gently illuminating what appears in the space. Subtle but important differences in emphasis.
Okay. And then there are kunchens, always a central kind of mysterious part of Zen, it seems.
Yes, Huatu and Kun contemplation. They really took off during the Song dynasty in China.
And kunjas are, what exactly?
Yeah.
Paradoxical stories.
Essentially, yes. Paradoxical stories, dialogues, questions, often between masters and students.
Right.
They're designed to trigger non-conceptual insight project.
Wisdom beyond intellect.
Exactly. The Linji school developed Kangwachan, observing the phrase meditation. This involves focusing intensely on the Huatu.
The critical phrase, the key point of the konen.
Right. And Dahui, a key figure here, actually criticized silent illumination. He argued that grappling with the dynamic tension of a kun was a more direct path.
So instead of just resting in stillness, you actively wrestle with these illogical phrases.
Exactly. The goal isn't an intellectual solution, but to exhaust the intellect, to trigger a breakthrough to a deeper intuitive understanding.
And in Japanese Rinzai Zen, this is quite formalized.
Very much so. Often the structured curriculum of kuns, students are told to become one with the kun, focusing on the Huatu, bypassing analysis, aiming for non-dual insight.
And this involves interviews with the teacher?
Yes, regular private interviews, Dakasan, Daisan, or Sansan. The student presents their understanding, gets guidance, often involves standardized answers, checking questions.
To test the insight.
Yeah, and even using capping phrase poetry to express understanding. It could be a long, intensive training. The teacher interaction is central, but, it also has potential vulnerabilities.
Needs wisdom and ethics on both sides. It sounds very rigorous, almost like a mental martial art.
It is. But interestingly, while Kaodong and Suchu traditions also studied chones, they didn't typically use them as the main focus in sitting meditation like Rinzai does. And some masters, like Benkai or Foyin Kingwen, even criticized kun practice. Benkai famously called them old waste paper.
Suggesting true enlightenment is more direct.
Yeah, more natural. So even within Zen, different views on the best tools.
What about other meditation forms we see today?
Another significant one is Nyanfo-chan, reciting a Buddha's name, usually Amitabha.
Membutsu in Japanese.
Right. Widely practiced in Chinese Chan as Nyanfo-chan. And surprisingly, it has early roots. Masters like Doxin practiced it. It's even in early Chan monastic guidelines.
Really?
Yeah. Later figures continued it, often within a mind-only Pure Land idea, the Pure Land as a manifestation of your own mind.
Where else is it practiced?
It's major in the Japanese Baku school, sometimes as the Nembutsu Kan, blending recitation and kun work. You find it in the Soto and Vietnamese teen, too. It's quite widespread.
Fascinating how these different strands intertwine under the Zen umbrella. Okay, we've spent a lot of time on meditation. How does this all connect back to that other core emphasis, direct experience and insight?
Well, Zen fundamentally emphasizes gaining direct insight into one's own Buddha nature. That's jiangxing or kensho.
Not just intellectual understanding.
No, it's a profound personal realization of your inherent enlightened potential. And ideally, that insight deepens and shows up in daily life, benefiting others.
And while some sources might seem to downplay study or traditional practices,
Right, seeming to favor just zazen and teacher interaction, it's crucial to remember most Zen schools do value and incorporate traditional Buddhist practices. They're seen as supportive.
so it's not usually about abandoning tradition, but prioritizing direct experience is the ultimate goal.
Precisely. And with its strong focus on Buddha nature, intrinsic enlightenment, sudden awakening, Zen actually draws on a wide spectrum of Buddhist thought.
Like,
Sarvastivada meditation, Mahayana Bodhisattva ideals, Yogacara ideas about consciousness, Tathagatagarbha teachings on inherent Buddhahood, Huayan school's worldview, Prajaparamita wisdom literature, Majjhimaka emptiness. It pulls from all of these.
wow, quite a synthesis.
And a central theme weaving through it all is seeing the nature, Jiansing or Kenshu. That moment of sudden insight, often seen as an initial enlightenment experience, a glimpse of ultimate reality.
Seeing one's nature, becoming Buddha. That phrase again.
It really captures a core aspiration, and different schools develop unique ways to facilitate and deepen this experience.
And this seeing the nature is tied closely to sudden enlightenment, right? Dunwu.
Absolutely. Instant awakening, it's inextricably linked to seeing your true nature. Then traditions often present this sudden path as more direct, even superior to gradual methods.
We saw hints of this early on with the East Mountain School.
Yeah, maintaining the one. And the doctrine of sudden enlightenment was really championed by figures like Shen Hui, and then became a cornerstone teaching in the Platform Sutra.
Like lightning illuminating everything at once.
A good analogy. But even with this strong emphasis on the sudden, is there still a need for ongoing practice?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Despite the powerful rhetoric around sudden awakening, Zen traditions universally acknowledge and incorporate gradual practices.
Like precepts, study, rituals.
Yes, cultivating the paramitas, perfections, all within a larger framework grounded in sudden enlightenment potential. The understanding is that initial glimpse isn't the end.
It's just the begin.
Kind of. Further practice, sustained cultivation, is seen as essential. To deepen the insight, remove ingrained defilements that obscure our nature, and fully embody Buddha nature in daily life.
This is the sudden enlightenment followed by gradual cultivation idea, associated with Zongmi.
Exactly. He argued that even after awakening, we still carry deep habits and obscurations. They only clear through consistent, dedicated training.
So the awakening is like planting the seed, but practice is the watering and tending needed for it to grow.
That's a very apt analogy. This sudden gradual idea became pretty standard in Chinese Zen after Zongmi. You see it reflected in teachings like Dongshan's 5 ranks, Junou's work in Korea, Hakumen's reforms in Japan.
Even the 10 ox herding pictures.
Yes, they depict that journey, initial discovery, and subsequent refinement.
It sounds like Zen offers a really compelling, dynamic path, embracing both that immediate insight and the ongoing work.
Indeed. At its very core, Zen's transformative power lies in that inseparable mix.
Yeah.
Dedicated meditation and the relentless pursuit of a direct personal experience of our inherent Buddha nature.
And from its roots, blending Indian and Chinese thought, to all the diverse meditation practices today. That core emphasis on experiencing truth firsthand, it just seems central.
Absolutely. The journey of Zen, as we've explored, it really includes both that initial spark, often sudden, and the continuous lifelong process of integrating that understanding into our ordinary lives.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Well, perhaps a new appreciation for how direct experience can unlock profound truths, maybe truths that escape just thinking about them.
Or perhaps even a spark of curiosity to maybe explore some of these diverse meditation forms we talked about.
We sincerely hope this deep dive has offered you a valuable shortcut, a way to grasp the core of Zen's emphasis on meditation and direct experience without getting tangled in overly academic jargon.
We hope it's been clear and useful.
Thanks for listening. Let us know in the comments what you think of the episode and what other topics you would like us to talk about. Subscribe to the channel to help us reach more listeners. Thank you and have an amazing day.